Why is it Australian Aboriginal art is so diverse in style? The main reason lies in the geography and environment of the Australian continent. Australia is a big country located down under in the southern hemisphere. It is so big that Europe fits snugly into it. It is so big that Germany fits into it 21.5 times. Australia has a landmass of about 600.5 million square kilometres, compared to Germany's only 300,000 square kilometres. Contrastingly, Australia's population is a mere 21 million, compared to Germany's massive 83 million. The reason for Australia's low population compared to landmass is because the largest part of Australia consists of desert or semi-arid lands. This area is commonly known as the Australian outback. Australia is the world's flattest continent with the least fertile soils. Only the southeastern and southwestern corners have a temperate climate, with a tropical climate existing in the northern part of the country. It is here, in the northern tropical section of the country, where rainforests, woodlands, grasslands, mangrove swamps, as well as deserts are found. Understandably, therefore, a great proportion of the population lives along the pleasant, temperate southeastern coastline. This diversity of climate and land formation is of utmost importance when looking at Australian Aboriginal art. It is because of the vastness of the country's size, as well as the diversity of climate, that the many Aboriginal tribes scattered throughout the land and have evolved separately from each other. Even though their core beliefs are similar, the art styles have distinct characteristics, independent from each other. Add to this the influences from European settlers, and we find a unique contemporary art style based on a very ancient and extraordinary culture. Founded in ancient times, the art tradition of the Aborigine continues to develop, reflecting the environment in which it was made. The art communicates stories by the artist and expresses contemporary situations and issues. Aboriginal artists portray ancestral mythologies that form the basis of life as they see it, as well as reflect social, cultural, and spiritual values. Rock engravings and cave paintings found across the Australian continent date back a minimum of 30,000 years. This is approximately double the age of the famous European Lascaux cave paintings, which have been dated only 10 to 15,000 years old. Traditional drawing and redrawings of mythical ancestors were usually intended to have some effect, direct or indirect, on their physical or spiritual environment. Although at times art was created to simply pass the time, the act of painting, the finished product, and the associated ritual had magical, religious, and educational significance. Aboriginal art is not a static relic of a bygone era, but a vital and pertinent expression of current human concerns. Like all art, the art of the Aborigine does not remain fixed, and the contemporary artists may choose to work in traditional media, for example bark and natural ochre, or choose to adopt new techniques. They have also been known to combine both the traditional with the new. The works in this exhibition reflect a range of the variety and diversity of styles and mediums from selected areas throughout Australia. These are broadly grouped as, firstly, bark and canvas painting from Arnhem Land in northeastern Australia. Secondly, dot paintings from the desert in central Australia. Thirdly, watercolour paintings from Hermannsburg, also found in the central desert. And lastly, urban art from major Australian cities and towns. It is because of the tropical nature of the climate and vegetation that there is an abundance of trees, therefore providing the Arnhem Land artist with unlimited resources. The materials used for bark painting are simple, yet at times difficult to obtain. The bark is stripped off a tree, dried and flattened. The pigments used for painting are naturally occurring clays and rocks. Some groups of people are fortunate to have rich deposits in their own territory, while others have to obtain supplies by trade or making long journeys to known sites. The white colours are obtained from white pipe clay and gypsum, yellow from dust inside ants' nests, and sometimes fungus. Charcoal provides the source for black and red-brown. Plant fixatives like orchid juice were used to bind the pigment to the bark. A commercial adhesive like PVA woodworking glue now mostly replaces natural and plant fixatives. The brushes used were twigs from trees and grasses, as well as hair from animals and humans. Commercially available products now mostly replace these. However, artists have been known to revert to using their traditional materials when they cannot access commercial paints, brushes and canvases. The art of Arnhem Land is significantly religious and is relevant to the social and cultural aspirations of the artist. The art is also a personal expression of cultural beliefs and values, and of a relationship with the natural and spiritual worlds. For example, the ancestor beings, such as Marialyan, the sea god of northeastern Arnhem Land, and the creation phenomenon like Junkwa sisters, who fertilised the land. The social structures of Arnhem Land are articulated through these themes. Some of these social structures are long and established, while others are constantly evolving. The artist has definite restrictions on what he can and cannot paint, especially where sacred designs are concerned. For example, everyone is divided into their own individual clans, as well as also inheriting their moiety from their father. In northeast Arnhem Land, the two moieties are Irena and Dua. Moiety is an anthropological term that simply means half, like the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang, where seemingly opposing forces are interconnected and interdependent in a natural world. Irena and Dua have similar principles featuring such opposing forces. For example, night and day and fire and water. It is the Irena person who inherits creation stories associated with fire, and the sun, whereas the doer person inherits creation stories associated with water and the stars, and so on. The moiety of an artist may also be identified by the style of the crosshatch patterning incorporated. The Yirritja artists predominantly use a triangular pattern of crosshatching, whereas for the doer artist, it is square or rectangular. The art of Arnhem Land is conventionally divided up into 3 stylistic regions. The Arnhem Land paintings in this exhibition are from the northeastern region, where the painting styles reflect a system of clan ownership of design. There are 2 systems of representation, the geometric and the figurative. Central Arnhem Land consists of all the elements of northeastern and western combined. The people of Central Arnhem Land are closely related both spiritually and culturally to those of northeastern Arnhem Land. Western Arnhem Land is generally figurative and also has many rock paintings. The majority of paintings are elaborate X-ray ancestor figures, such as the rainbow serpent, and animated natural figures in a plain background. Abstract dot paintings from the Central Desert are the epitome of a modern and contemporary art style based on the foundations of an ancient tribal culture. In the desert regions of Central Australia, there are a number of primitive artistic traditions. For example, body decoration, sand sculptures, and sand paintings. Since the 1970s, these have been incorporated as acrylic paintings on canvas. At Papunya, near Alice Springs, in the early 1970s, a schoolteacher called Jeffrey Barden introduced local artists to a variety of new art materials, such as acrylic paints. He encouraged them to paint pictures using these paints onto boards and paper, incorporating the designs from their sacred gigantic ground sculptures and sand paintings. The making of these sand creations were part of ceremonial process, such as initiations, and are accompanied by storytelling, chanting and singing, taking several months to create. On completion, they would be so big they could cover the area of a house. The sand paintings were made by drawing patterns into the red sand, and they were coloured by including locally found natural pigments such as ochres, charcoal and ash. More colour and texture was added using brightly coloured birds' feathers, berries, flowers and other vivid vegetation. It is these extremely large sand paintings that formed the basis for the designs used in the contemporary abstract dot paintings of today. Sand paintings are still made for secret and sacred ceremonial purposes, whereas the acrylic canvas paintings are made primarily for commercial enterprise in the Western and European art markets. Nevertheless, like in Arnhem Land, the legends and designs depicted in the modern canvas paintings portray ancient traditions and stories belonging to the artist. It is important to note that because of the sociology governing ownership of the stories, the designs and the entitlement to make them continue to apply to the new acrylic paintings. Because of this intricate system of ownership of the stories, it is not uncommon for a senior elder to have one or more junior members of his own clan actually paint the painting for him or her whilst retaining ownership and recognition of the work as his own, whereas in reality the work is that of a group execution. The style is distinguished by using dots to create surface patterns and a visual texture. The use of dots may be a direct extension of the means of creating a sand painting. The pictorial makes use of many symbols and designs that change their meaning depending on context. The most common symbols used are the circle, the line, and tracks. The circle indicates, among other things, a campsite or waterhole. The line, straight or wavy, represents a path, track or stream. Tracks, on the other hand, can be either human or animal. The symbols are used to tell stories of the creation, the ancestors, the giving of law to the people and the land, resting places, natural features such as rock holes, watercourses and mountain ranges, vegetation, atmospheric effects, and sites of social significance. Hermannsburg is situated 130 kilometres west of Alice Springs in Central Australia and was built on the traditional lands of the Western Aranda Aboriginal people. Here, the Hermannsburg Mission Station was the first Aboriginal mission in the Northern Territory. It was founded by the Hermannsburg Missionary Society from Germany and supported by the South Australian Lutheran Church from 1877 until 1891. And then again, in 1894, the South Australian Lutheran Church took up the mission once more. It is one of the earliest and longest serving missions in Australia. Art in many forms has always featured strongly in Aranda life, and over the years the Aranda people have embraced new mediums and techniques exposed to them by the missionaries and their associates. It was through these missionaries during the 1930s that watercolour painting in the European tradition was introduced by non-Aboriginal artist Rex Batterby. This new style of painting was embraced by Aranda artist Albert Namatjira, who then taught the techniques to other Aboriginal artists. This style is now known as the Hermannsburg School. Born in 1902, Albert Namatjira became the world's most renowned and famous Aboriginal watercolour artist. In Hermannsburg, contemporary landscape painting draws heavily from the legacy of the families and stature of the well-known Namatjiras and revels in the true colours of the Central Desert at different times of the day. For example, female artist Therese Ryder's soft pastel hues mirror the morning colours, this being in contrast with the bold reds and purples of the men's works, which is reminiscent of the short period before sundown when the illumination of the setting sun casts an eerie glow over the landscape, as seen in Basil Ranji's painting. Basil Ranji was taught to paint by Albert Namatjira and is also his nephew. The Hermannsburg artists paint their country with a deep knowledge of their own place within it. As Theresa Ryder puts it,
"If I wanted to do a painting from that other side, I would feel out of place. I don't know what travelled that side and the meaning of the hills and all that."
To the Hermannsburg artists, this example of painting expresses a closeness to their country while still incorporating their cultural beliefs. It differs only in the visual translation. The watercolour movement in the Central Desert has not remained static, but has moved ahead in the use of colour and technique to form a continuously interesting regional art tradition. Nowadays, the Hermannsburg style of art has developed to incorporate the world-renowned Hermannsburg potters, as well as the Nataria silk painters. The work of urban Aboriginal artists reflect a variety of political, social, cultural, historical and artistic experiences that differ to those who live in the traditional ways, yet with whom they share many concerns and ideals. These artists draw upon both the European and Aboriginal artistic influences. Their work often addresses issues such as the question of identity, dispossession, and social injustices. Having received formal art training at Sydney's prestigious Alexander Mackie College, now known as the College of Fine Art, Raymond Meeks states,
I can find no other outlet to express my emotions. I have a natural need to interpret what I feel and see, and it's important to record it. I think a lot of people see Aboriginal people as once upon a time people, but the fact is they are alive and growing stronger, and it's my birthright that allows me to be who I am.
On the other hand, neither attending art school in a sense, nor through Aboriginal tutoring, Robert Campbell Jr. worked confidently to invent his own idiosyncratic visual devices and painting style, his own cross-hatching, so to speak. His subject matter ranged from colonialism in Australia to the brutal history of racism and his experiences of this. Born in Kempsey, a large country town in northern New South Wales, Robert Campbell Jr. learned to draw in a humble way by producing images of birds and animals in pencil on his father's carved boomerangs. His father would then trace the images with a red-hot wire to burn them into the wood. These were then sold to tourists as souvenirs. In conclusion, Aboriginal art is among the oldest in the world, expressing the ancient origins of life and landscape, stretching back to the infinite past known as the dreaming. The dreaming gives an explanation of the formation of the landscape and the creation of many outstanding geographical features. It recounts epic travels of great spirit ancestors and tells how they created the animals and the plants and gave birth to the people. It tells also how the ancestors taught the Aboriginal people how to live in harmony with nature and how to behave towards one another. This set the pattern of traditional Aboriginal culture, which has survived for 40,000 years.